Hello, everyone, and welcome to Workplace Revamp, where we rethink how work really gets done by talking to leaders who make an impact in their industry. I'm your host, Rene Madden. Today, I'm honored to have Lisa Jones with us, someone I worked with many years ago and whose career in asset management is a masterclass in leadership and adaptability. Lisa recently stepped down as president and CEO of Amundi Asset Management US and head of the Americas, and she now serves as independent director of Clearwater Analytics. Over her career, she's held senior leadership roles at Morgan Stanley, Eaton Vance, and MFS, guiding global distribution, institutional business, and executive strategy. In this conversation, we'll explore her journey, how she led through industry disruption, and what she sees for the future of asset management. Then we'll close with a lightning round so you can get to know Lisa beyond the boardroom. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Renee, thanks for having me.
How are
It's an
you?
honor to be here with you, and congrats on your new adventure. I'm really
Oh,
impressed and excited
yeah.
for you.
It's the next phase of life, right? After,
Mhm.
I don't want
Yes,
to retire. I never say retire, right? I don't like
right.
the word. So it's just the next phase. So I really am excited to have you, Lisa, and just learn from someone like you, a woman who's been a leader in asset management for so many years, and just to find out about your journey. And, you know, what can you tell us about what were the turning points that shaped your path?
It's a great question to start off with. And as you mentioned, I recently stepped down, not using the R retire word, looking for my second career at this point in
Exactly.
time. But with some distance, it's been about 5 or 6 months, so I've had a chance to kind of reflect a lot. And the turning points for me in really getting to understand in what environments I operate at my highest level
Okay.
is when I got a little bit bored, got a little bit too comfortable, and wasn't learning as much on the job. I recognized that when that was kind of the environment that I was in, it was really time for me to make a change within the company if it was there, or pursue something outside of the organization. And that was a key turning point, as you referenced the companies that I've worked for, as why I took the steps I took over the last nearly 40 years of working.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I've found myself in that same position. And I even talked to a client earlier where they feel like they're at a standstill. And I said to them, maybe you've outgrown this position,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when
Very true.
it's time to really think about that. So can you tell us about like when the stakes were high, what leadership practices help you keep your teams focused and performing?
So there are, not to go way back in time, but there are probably two critical periods that I can think of that are relevant to answering that question. Is one, during the credit crisis of 2008,
Okay.
2009, and then again during the COVID technical sell-off in the marketplace, right? So both of those were kind of either investment or environmentally led
Yeah.
issues that cause great disruption, not only with our clients, but really in the stability around the capital markets. And so in 2008, 2009, one of the critical points that we were taking a look at is really understanding the P&L of the business, the kind
Oh,
of elasticity of the business. And because AUM in the industry went down dramatically, and you have to take a look at, at what point in time in your expenses and in your revenues are you somewhat forced to make a decision. In the company at the time that I was working at, we made kind of a commitment to not disrupt employment, like to really preserve jobs for people,
oh,
because we knew that the environment was very, very difficult. And we needed to be present for the employees and to really communicate what we were doing as a senior leadership team and almost ensure that our employees believed in the messaging that management was saying because there was a lot of restructuring and a lot of downsizing during that period of time, and we were a bit of an outlier, which ended up being graciously appreciated by the employees during that period of time. And just fast forward into the COVID sell-off, uh, for those portfolio managers, and I was CEO of Amundi US at the time, for those portfolio managers who had not weathered several market cycles, you wanted to make sure that those investment teams felt supported, felt confident, felt secure, because the worst thing you could have is having your investment teams kind of pull back and then missing out on a rebound or
Mm,
making some very short-term decisions out of, stress or anxiety. And in that environment, along with my CIO, we really were present and had daily calls, nightly calls with some of those PM teams to make sure that they maintain their confidence during this very volatile period of time.
wow, that is so important because even when you look at the market environment right now, and especially you're hearing about layoffs, and I think
Mhm.
building that confidence in your teams and people, that should make such a difference because I've been in companies where it was silent, right? I was at Morgan Stanley in
Mhm.
2008.
Yep.
You weren't there at that time, but
Yep.
it was so scary. I mean, I went on the elevator one day and I thought I might not have a job to come back to after lunch. So, but we didn't have leaders. I mean, the head of the Morgan Stanley was great. John Mack, I loved him, but
Hmm.
our our senior leaders of our department weren't telling us it's okay, don't worry. Everyone was scared. So to have
Right.
someone like you is amazing, that could talk to employees like that. So how did you balance the short-term performance pressures with long-term strategic vision, even during those times that you talked about?
Well, part of the reason why I made the changes in my career is because I was really fascinated by the business models based upon the ownership structure of a firm. So at MFS, it was owned by a Canadian life insurance company, right? Sun Life of Canada. Of course, we both know Morgan Stanley, very large investment banking. Eaton Vance was an independent, publicly traded organization, and Amundi is part of a large French bank organization. Ownership structure matters so importantly, and trying to understand what is that short-termism versus balancing the long-term opportunity, which is what you need in order to effectively manage strategy. So, when you're within some of those larger public companies that are owned by a bank or owned by something else, the street and your investors expect everything every quarter. And I applaud the current administration is actually suggesting that maybe we should report semi-annually instead of quarterly. Like, why do we need to report quarterly? And so I think that it's so difficult, not only given the need to report, but 24/7, everything that's available, all of this information. At the end of the day, I believe that both employees and our clients are done a disservice because you want to take a long term, right? To execute a strategy is 3 to 5 years. So, yes, you want to course correct when the decisions that you've taken may not be panning out, when the environment around you changes. So, you have to be flexible. You have to really try to educate your internal stakeholders on why taking a longer term view is necessary in order to achieve the strategy. But again, it's probably one of the most difficult aspects of our business that I've had to face.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's difficult because, like you said, if you have this long-term strategy, one quarter isn't enough to see that
Hmm.
impact. So that's really difficult. Did you ever face stakeholder pushback when emphasizing long-term strategic vision?
So I would say in my most recent position as CEO of the US of a large organization, but is based in Paris, France, right? It's based outside of the US. And the market environments are different, the regulatory environments are different, the underlying investors and shareholders are different. So I constantly try to kind of present the vision for what the US is, how competitive it is, the different stakeholders that are making the decisions in the United States. And that was more of a challenge for me because of the lens by which the management team, which sat in Paris and kind of had a view of the world that they grew up in outside of the United States, it was constantly a challenge with pushback from the stakeholders at the parent company level of some of the dynamics in the US business. It probably frustrated them more than it frustrated me, but that was the environment that we were in.
What would you say was a best practice you used to influence stakeholders like that?
Um, the best practice would have been, so here's where like I'm acknowledging something I could have done better otherwise, is never underestimate face-to-face meetings, right? When you first start going global, when companies started, everyone handed out a book like Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands, right? We know of the different cultures that are around us. But as we all tend to communicate via email, there are cultural differences in email communication, right? In the US, we're short, we're to the point, we exclamate, you can almost hear tone
Yes.
or the pitch of our voice. And that doesn't work overseas. What truly works is face to face. And as time went on, I did less face to face. You believe that you've established relationships. Of course, they remember everything, but people change, positions change, the markets changed. And a best practice for anyone in that position is do not underestimate the importance of getting on a plane, going somewhere, and sitting down frequently, repeatedly, and constantly in order to build that trust and to make sure that there's no misunderstanding.
That sounds great. I totally agree. And speaking about culture, how, as a CEO, do you help define the culture of the workplace?
When I left Morgan Stanley, I had a mission to be a CEO because I really observed culture at different firms. And when culture works, it's magical. Everyone rows in the same direction. There's a high level of trust. There's great transparency, and people simply love working together. And when the culture is fractured or siloed or not necessarily set from the tone for the top, I think that that breeds some artificial harmony within an organization that I don't operate my best in. So, what I've learned from observing other leaders and CEOs and senior people in the business is you need to walk the halls. And so I would literally block off time on my calendar to walk the halls. And not just for the investment department, but I would go to all departments on all floors, pop in, sit down, how's it going? What are you hearing? And that then encouraged people to walk into my office
I,
as well. And so culture is one of daily work. It's daily work. It's not just a quarterly town hall or a newsletter that goes out. So I do get a little concerned for the amount of remote positions
yeah,
that we have. I think that that shortchanges the employee in both observing good leadership, observing senior people, identifying those mentors or advocates across the organization, as well as it may not provide the same level of access that I enjoyed having on just walking around and saying hi to people.
That's amazing, Lisa, because I've been in organizations where they talk the talk, right? They talk
Hmm.
about being inclusive and listening, but then you leave the town hall and the seniors go in their office, shut the door. You see them in the hallway, but they walk right by. And I think
Hmm.
that's so frustrating for employees who are really trying to make a difference. So I think that's so important. The other thing you mentioned is, being remote. And I know there's been a lot of debate about return to the office. Jamie Dimon
Yeah.
pulled back his team to his employees to 5 days of work. What do you think about the whole, is it hybrid? I'm kind of the hybrid. I do agree
Hmm.
it makes sense being in the office, but is 5 days necessary?
I think 5 days is too much. There needs to be some flexibility. What I'm a huge supporter of is we've gone from just in a matter of 5 or 6 years having to be present in the office from very early in the morning to very late at night, and all of the stresses and challenges that that puts on women, families, husbands, wives, partners, and just managing life outside of that. You add on to it the horrible commutes that people in New York and in Boston have. It's 3 hours a day,
Yeah.
which then backs up your weekends. So I like the flexibility. I think that if you don't have structure around it, employees will constantly try to stretch it more and more. So I'm a proponent of 4 in, 1 off. Like I like the 4 in and 1 off. And again, with some flexibility around that. I know many in and around the Boston area are still 3-2.
Okay.
I think if I were still there, I would go 4-1. So maybe
Yeah.
people are happy that I'm not there anymore, but I would do 4-1. I just like people
Fair.
around.
I
Yeah.
think it's fair. I think even before COVID, I did 4-1 for my team because I kept, what would happen is in the morning they'd email and say, I'm going to work from home today. And I thought, let's put a little bit of rules around it, right? But giving
Hmm.
people one day to go to the doctor or care for a loved one, I think
Hmm.
is so important. So the asset management industry has really shifted the landscape since you and I worked together. I mean, with
Hmm.
regulation, tech, client expectations, what pivot or challenge have you faced that you felt really tested you?
So, um, what I would say is in market environments where we start to hear people refer to trends or changes as either or, I don't think that's the best way to approach things. So, for an example, going back in time, all of the mutual funds were front end loaded. That's the only way that they existed. And then Fidelity came out with no load. And
Yeah.
everyone was, do you want load or do you want no load? And so those fund companies that had load on their structures, they were trying to defend and say, this is why it's best. And then Fidelity was trying to say, well, this is why it's best. And then we went, further on. Is it active or is it passive? So I actually think, and what I've tried to do so that I don't get sucked into that vortex is to take out that word or and put and. So load and no load, which is now the whole industry, right? Active and passive, which is where everybody is at. So when we try to think of this is right or this is wrong, that's then I think we confuse our clients. We spend a lot of time on a lot of analysis that actually is, the market, the demand from the market and from our investors, retail or institutional, along with regulation, will help dictate where we're going. So be open, be flexible, be adaptable, try to understand how all of these new structures, events, or trends would fit into your business model and your core competencies, and can you be part of that and do it exceptionally well.
That's great. That's great advice. And, I think if we look at 5 years, maybe 6 years ago before COVID, digital transformation hit the
Mhm.
industry. And what can you say about that in terms of the industry and how it impacted our clients?
So, and we're still in the midst of that massive revolution, right? So again, that's probably another like or that we need to take
Yeah.
out, right? It's going to be people doing work or everything is going to be with machines. So there's a role for everyone who can perform in an environment like that. So the digital transformation, which was a long time in the making, was most technology, most use of digital tools were relegated to the back office. How can we process better? How can we do this without paper? And when it finally did a leapfrog, a very slow leapfrog into the front office, into how we interact with clients, into how we deliver more personalized, customized information to clients, I actually believe we're still not where we need to be as an industry, but it's come a very, very long way. And that's freed up people that we put in these fantastic jobs, head of marketing, head of client service, portfolio management, to focus on their true craft and do it exceptionally well and take away some of that inefficiency
Yes.
from their day to day. So we're in a very interesting time for sure with AI and how it's
Uh,
transforming the
yes.
world.
It's really exciting. But I do wonder about institutional clients because I know when I was at JP Morgan,
Hmm.
institutional clients weren't necessarily ready for
Hmm.
this digital transformation. Because I think, institutional clients, they want you to be one-on-one with them. Do you,
Hmm.
how will that change with AI?
I think to me, if you appreciate that our institutional clients, right, by the nature of their investment policy statement, it is customized to them, to what they need, to how they want their money managed, and how they want it to be serviced. What COVID has done is it's highlighted and introduced to our institutional clients, especially those that are, 15, 16-hour plane rides away, that you can have a balance. You can have a hybrid approach. So
Yeah.
the virtual meetings that we would do with clients during that COVID period of time were very well received. And why not allow that to be part of how you're interacting with clients so that your investment teams, right, to do a meeting 16 hours away, that's 4 days out of your schedule. That is really taxing, especially when markets are quite volatile. So I find that our institutional clients have embraced that to a certain degree. The second aspect, which we all tried to do more than 10 years ago, is to create kind of customized portals for our clients, right? You go in and you get this information, and while some have embraced that, many of our clients are less about pulling information. They still want us to push it, right? They don't want to go get it, they want to receive it. But what I have found, and actually in my board work that I'm doing with Clearwater Analytics, is that the use of AI in answering some of the more germane, routine questions that institutional clients have, they're now embracing it via chat, right? Via the chat bots that we've put in place. And
Okay.
that's given them real-time information. The accuracy is very high. It's freeing up the client service or the operational people to focus on other aspects. And we keep getting demands for more and more from these clients. And that's encouraging.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, and I think as the generations, I don't want to say boomers because I'm a boomer,
Yes,
but I think as, Gen Z and millennials go into leadership, that's going to change as well, right?
excellent point. Yep.
So, speaking of the industry and the evolution, what trends or disruptions do you think will matter most in the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
Well, we've touched upon it with AI, right? We need to embrace it. We need some regulation around it. We need some rules around it. But to sit back and say it's high risk or we just don't know how to implement it, or it's too costly or too expensive. I think we all need to embrace it, and we need to bring our employees along with it and figure out from our clients the best way that we can implement it. So that's going to disrupt some positions. It's
Yes.
going to disrupt how we do business. It will, from money management, from how we're managing portfolios, to how we're meeting with clients. So that most likely is a disruption that's already underway, that we're going to see where that ride is over the next 5 to 10 years or so. I also think that the current environment that we are in, with the world becoming a bit more localized than globalized, and some of these, higher political tones that are occurring around the world, I believe that while we never want to have that interrupt how we're doing business, we just have to be mindful of how our clients around the globe, how we bring that information or bring our services to our clients. And it's really a stressful time for
Yeah.
people I know who are, in client service positions or portfolio management positions, and they're traveling around to some of these regions where we've had longstanding client relationships, but there's something going on between our leaders
Yes.
across these countries. But probably the most disruptive, Renee, is going to be around AI, in my view.
And what would you say to employees where, as you mentioned, client service or operations where they're fearing their jobs right now because of AI? What do you think will be those skills they should develop in thinking if, AI takes over some of their responsibilities?
Well, the basic line, right? Because I remember actually when you and I were at Morgan Stanley, one of the big projects that we all try to work on was to put in place a data mart, right? Like a
Uh,
central data mart for the organization. And what you learn through that experience, which is still true with AI, is garbage in means garbage out, right? Your data and the accuracy of that information has to be clean, scrubbed, pristine in order for it to answer client questions on ChatGPT, right? That's the big fear, is that AI, how do you know if it's real, or if it's, not accurate? So what I would say to employees is, one, first, let's think of the ways that we can make our days more efficient. What are you spending a lot of time on that is really not exciting, has to be done, and how can we do it in a better way? And if that freed up your time, how could we best tap into your skill or your ability to want to take on more projects? How could we give you some of that creative freedom to actually work on other more interesting items? Yes, there will be some positions that are disrupted in that. So be technically proficient, which all of the younger generation is. Don't be afraid of change. Be part of the solution and part of the journey to help kind of guide the best ways that we can implement that for our clients.
oh, that's great advice. Really good advice. So just, thinking about that and any advice you can give to rising leaders who are looking into stepping into the C-suite today, like what is one piece of advice they should carry forward?
So I would say, regardless if it was a man or a woman, right? But in many cases, usually some of the younger female employees that I've had over time, you have to take risk. You have to step outside of your comfort zone. That's when you experience growth. That's when you try new things. You kind of build your resume, build your repertoire of who you are as a professional. And within that, you can't be afraid to fail, because taking risk, not every risk is going to play out. So take the risk. So maybe you've been in a position for 5 or 6 years and you're a little burnt out and you want to try something else. Like, go for it. The only thing you can experience from that is, wow, it really didn't work, or it's not what I thought it would be, but you would never be second guessing yourself. When I joined Morgan Stanley, I was living in Boston, and I had my girls were young at that period of time, and I really wanted the job. And so I said to my girls, third grade and eighth grade, I think mom's going to take this job in New York. And my youngest daughter, Sydney, in the third grade, she says, Mom, you absolutely should do it. So what? If you fail, just come back and get a job in Boston. But if you don't take it, will you always be wondering whether or not you made the right decision? I was like, okay, how old are
Oh,
you? 8, 9? That was, that was incredible. But I would say for us to have great future leaders, take a risk, learn, step out of your comfort zone.
absolutely. I love that advice, Lisa. And it's so true. I mean, I found when I was in a place that I wasn't happy, when I turned it around or I learned something new, it was the best. Even
Well,
with
look
leaving.
at what you just did. Exactly, right? Look what you just did. You left the corporate world and you said, I have this passion for coaching and helping dysfunctional organizations get out of the chaos, and you're doing it.
Yeah, I'm just
It's
doing it.
great.
Right.
Good.
Oh, thank you. Well, let's talk a little bit about Lisa beyond the boardroom. So, what book or podcast or habit inspires you?
So now that I'm in this post the R word for 6 months or so. And everyone says to me, don't make any decisions for 6 months. So there's one book that my youngest daughter, and I'm going to look it up because I forget her. Oh, it's Julia Cameron. It's called The Artist Way.
Okay.
So I have a creative side, a creative streak. You have to actually in asset management, right? You're constantly creating new programs, campaigns, products, marketing, branding, whatever the case is. So in this book by Julia Cameron, The Artist Way, it is somewhat of a workbook on how you tap into what excites you, like what gets you
All
charged
right.
up, what makes you want to do a little bit more of it. And one of the things that she recommends, this is like so basic, but I actually started doing it, is you have to write down, you take 10 minutes, you write 3 pages of a journal every single day. In the morning, preferably. Stream of consciousness, like
Yep.
no agenda, like what's in your brain, what's in. And so it's been very fascinating to see kind of just what comes out. Some days, all I'm doing is I'm thinking about my team and I'm thinking about work that I had. And other days, it's like, wow, maybe I should redecorate a bedroom or go see a museum. So it's just interesting for me to read and go back through that. From a podcast perspective, there's several podcasts that are out there on second chance careers,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
So retiring from my first career,
Yes.
pursuing my second career. What is that? And how can I listen to and learn from others who actually have gone through a similar path?
That's great. That's great. I'm going to put that book in the description and a link because I want to read that too. So
Good.
if you weren't in finance, what do you think you would do differently? Like if you didn't go into finance, was there another career that you would
I
have?
probably would have run a restaurant.
Uh,
My parents ran a restaurant when we were growing up, come from a big Italian family. I love to cook Italian. I really love the restaurant scene, and I would have done that.
okay, interesting. I'm Italian too. I didn't know you were.
Yes.
I'm not a good cook though. I didn't get So, what's something surprising people might not know about you?
I would say what's surprising that people may not know about me is the fact that I still enjoy in all the pace and everything that we're doing. I still enjoy the calm and the quiet of being with family,
Nice.
right? So to me, if I could do Sunday dinner every week with the big lasagna with my family coming over, I would definitely do that. So, we travel the globe, we have all of these positions, but I would drop everything if it were kind of a family event for everyone to be around. I'm not
That's
sure that answers the question
no
in the manner that you wanted, but it's
perfect. It's perfect. And
yeah.
can you tell us, you mentioned your third grader, I don't know how many years ago. How old is she now?
So that third grader is now 29.
Oh my God.
And she just moved to San Diego. She does social media influence marketing for a company. And
Oh,
my older daughter is 32. So not only did I retire, but I became a grandmother. That's the other word that I'm not supposed. I have to figure out what to do. So little Amelia is
oh,
17 months. She and her husband Brendan. She's in our business. She works for a private equity firm here in around Boston. So yeah, I've got two
oh.
fantastic grown women as daughters.
Amazing. Oh, Lisa, thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it and love hearing your stories and insights. I mean, you can help so many. I think it's a tough culture right now, um,
Yes.
with a lot of change. So your advice, I think, is so helpful for many. And your ability to lead with calm in a high pressure environment is, that's why you were a CEO. We need more people, women like you in those positions, because I think that's what employees want right now. They want to
Mhm.
hear the truth, even if it's not what they want to hear, right? Is as long
Mhm.
as, people can be honest, I think that goes so far.
And our younger colleagues and workers, they're a tough generation.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, they want to see the approachability to
Yeah.
their leader, right? That to them builds trust. It's something that they want to emulate. It's something that they want to follow. And I think it's increasingly more important today to be oh so present
Oh yeah. I
and
mean,
have a little humility.
yes. I mean, one of my favorite places to work was Schroeder's. And my first day, the CEO of the Americas came over to my desk to introduce himself. And I was just like, are you talking to me? You
Yeah,
know?
it's
And
wonderful.
yes,
Yep.
and that was the environment where the CEO came out of his office and he talked to everyone. So that's great that you did that. And, I wish so many more CEOs in this industry would do more of that. I think if you want to keep talent, you want to retain and engage, those are the things you need to do. So
And it's within our control too, right? You know, it's not something you
absolutely.
have to like invest in, spend money on, plan for. You control it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. It's
Yes.
very easy to do. Well, thanks so much, Lisa.
Thank you.
And I wish you
Pleasure.
so much more success and your family. It sounds
Thank
great.
you.
And I love those Sunday dinners too. They're
Yes.
wonderful.
Well,
So
good luck to you. Go
thank
get them, as we
you.
say, Renee. Okay.
Take care, Lisa.
Okay. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. And for those tuning in, if you enjoyed this episode of Workplace Revamp, be sure to subscribe, share it with a colleague, and let us know your takeaways. And thanks again, Lisa, and take care, everyone.
Bye now. Thank you.